And I think the one issue with property that I have is there's massive pressure on estate agents at the moment. I think there's going to be a shift towards specialization. So agents will have to specialize in certain segments. I think there's a shift there. There's going to be a big demand in estate agents to become real experts, genuine experts. The problem I sometimes think is that you want the big paycheck, and the big paycheck does come in time, but it's one of the things of working through the difficult stuff and understanding that a lot of the agencies have got this thing back to basics, and it's never been anything but basics. Why did you ever leave basics? So realizing and accepting that being a real estate agent is a career, and I think that's also a lot of the failings, is that people come into the world and think I'm going to do this part-time while I do something else. I'm going to moonlight or I'm going to moonlight as an estate agent. And so I think the first step is accepting and being a full real estate agent and accepting that as a career. Self-doubt again goes back to how do you make a successful business is just showing up. So first step is showing up. So property industry in 10 years, where's it going to be?
What do you believe separates an average property agent from a top performing one?
Really a combination of lots of things. There's determination, there's grit, there's drive and aggression to a level. But then there's also a lot of other things that come to it. It's the willingness to sort of go above and beyond for their clients. There's the excitement and passion for property, and actually more so the excitement and passion for people. So an average agent isn't just the best closer or negotiator. It's not the best lister or anything else. It's really a combination, particularly in South Africa, where the agent's representing everybody in that transaction. So an understanding of the market, understanding of structuring. There's actually so many things that come into it. And again, it also varies by market. If you're in a commercial agent or a residential agent or development agent, that also significantly differs. Background, expertise, network, there's so many factors.
Where does mindset fit in?
Mindset I think comes down to that grit and that determination, that fortitude to just push through. It's sometimes a thankless job. It's sometimes a business where you get at the finishing line, you sort of lose out, and you've got to pick yourself up and go again. And you commission driven, so you are literally, and people say you're writing your own paycheck, but you're relying on so many people and so many factors to write your paycheck for you, and you just trying to pull all these strings the whole time, and hopefully out of all the strings you have, you manage to connect two that actually result in a deal. So I think mindset is a huge factor. Your belief that you're adding value is huge. That's where you protect your commission and can defend and negotiate your commission. Your ability to see through the negativity. People often don't see the value of an estate agent. Understanding your own value is super important. I think it's probably the biggest thing. Being able to, and then underpinning that with confidence when you're negotiating these deals.
If you were starting out today as a rookie agent from scratch with no context, no money, how would you build momentum in the first 90 days?
So the first 90 days as a rookie agent, if I had no context, no money, I would join an agency and do the groundwork for a successful agent. So I would join a team where there is an agent that is taking market share, that's active, that's proactive, that aligns with how you think you should be able to, or how you want to run your own business eventually. And I'll join that team, and then I'll do all the things that they ask you to do. So cold call, door knock, drop flyers, connect with people, go to network events till bleeding through the eyeballs. Spend time with people is the most important thing. So 90 days is not enough. 180 days, 360 days, I would just get myself into a team with a successful agent, or under somebody that I can do all the hard yards. The problem I sometimes think is that you want the big paycheck, and the big paycheck does come in time, but it's one of the things of working through the difficult stuff and understanding that a lot of the agencies have got this thing back to basics, and it's never been anything but basics. Why did you ever leave basics? Yes. It's always about the basics in the real estate industry, particularly the residential space.
Yeah, so you were a firm believer of walking first, crawling first, walking and then running.
Just being born first, I think, is important. So realizing and accepting that being a real estate agent is a career, And I think that's also a lot of the failings, is that people come into the world and think, I'm going to do this part-time while I do something else. I'm going to moonlight, or I'm going to moonlight as an estate agent. And so I think the first step is accepting and being a full real estate agent, and accepting that as a career, and then going from there and building up. And success in real estate often, and not always, but often, is about just how long you've been in the game. The most successful agents, you speak to them, they haven't been around for 6 months, they've been around for years. So time in the game is vitally important. Time in the game, doing the right things in the right way, is more important. So yeah, definitely born, crawl, walk, run, sprint.
What are the biggest mistakes you see agents make when they're trying to grow their business, and how can they avoid it?
Aligning with the wrong partners, I think, is the biggest thing, and allocating resources in the wrong places. So often they think that they want to scale, and they go to either the wrong agency, or align with the wrong principal, or align with the wrong partner within that business to then try and scale. And people don't have the same vision, the same insight, the same input as they do, and they sort of lose out, and they give up half their commission, or they give up more than that, and then they run down the road of saying, well, it doesn't work, scaling doesn't work, I'm going to go back to my own space. So I think part two is staying true to what you want to achieve. Some agents just want to sell in their area and make a living, and that's cool.
Yeah.
Some agents want to scale and build businesses that go beyond sort of boundaries and provinces and everything else. So I think it's staying true to what you want to achieve and doing it the right way. And I think a big one is also people sometimes compromise themselves and don't consider the ethics of something properly, particularly when they're in a financial situation that they need to make decisions. So I think it's important that you make decisions. Every decision must be for the long term, and it'll eventually, in the short term, pay off.
When do you know when to quit?
When to quit? Never. So you never quit. You always need to change tack. You always need to readjust. You always need to sometimes U-turn, but it's never quitting. So I think if you quit, it sort of puts in your mind that you can just walk away quite easily. And I think the one issue with property that I have is, and I talk about it often, is that once you're in property, it's in your blood forever. And so quitting is not an option. Finding another space within property, I think, is probably more important. So understanding and having self-awareness that maybe, hey, I'm not the best sales agent in the world, and I'm not closing sales, I'm not closing deals and everything else, that's one thing. But if you understand that, hey, I'm not the best sales agent, but the cadence of rentals really excites me, and I'm really good at rentals, or commercial is an option, or in fact, I'm no good at all that, I'm a really shit salesperson, I'm going to actually go into a space where I'm going to be in the administration side, and I can guide and teach and lecture and train. That's a space. So the beautiful thing about real estate, and why it's kept my attention for so long, is it actually piques any interest you have at any point in time. So if you at some stage, AI is the buzzword at the moment, if you're interested in AI, you can go play and create tools for real estate coming out your ears, because there's so many opportunities and there's so many gaps in the tech space within our world, that you can do literally anything you want to do. You can be creative, you can be boring as anything if you want. Real estate takes care of all of it. So quitting real estate is not an option. Quitting in general is not an option. Changing tack, readjusting, U-turn sometimes if you have to. That's the options.
But what was the hardest decision you had to make as an owner of this company, and what did you learn from it?
Hardest decisions. There's lots. I mean, I think to the point of scaling. How do you scale, and when do you scale, and when you decide you want to do something, do you do it in spite of people or with people, and particularly when people are speaking and not necessarily negative, but are doubtful about the direction that the business is going. If you're convinced that it's got to go in a certain direction, do you go with it, or do you go against your inner voice and then make that decision? And making the decision one way or the other actually has sort of, I suppose, collateral damage to the decision. So it could either be that you're make a decision for what you want to do, which is what we did, and then you have some collateral damage in terms of people that you spend a lot of time with and have a massive amount of respect for and have enjoyed working with, but because their vision doesn't necessarily align, it doesn't necessarily sort of carry through. On the flip side, there's a reality of, in any business, and it's hard, especially when you're in sort of startup phase and you're getting going, you have people join your team, have the same energy, excitement, passion, or you feel they do. But unfortunately, as you go down the road, you realize some people are made for the ultramarathon, and some people are made for the 21K, and they're at 32 kilometers, they're no longer able to keep up. And I think that's also the reality of the business, is you've got to accept that some people in some worlds are there for a period of time, and some people aren't. And I think that's always a hard thing, because it's such a people-driven business that you want to hope and see that people that are loyal and that add to your world and everything else, that they'll be there forever. But sometimes it just doesn't work out that way. You're doing, they're doing, or just because it's just how it works out. So I think understanding that there's temporary passengers sometimes is probably the hardest thing. Yeah, it's super difficult, especially when you connect with people. It becomes super hard. And again, our business is built entirely on connection, network, and just generally having people in the space that align with us and speak the same language and sort of have the same outlook on things. We've tried to stay away from a super cutthroat dog-eat-dog environment and into an environment where everybody's part of something, share the vision and everything else. It just doesn't always work out that way.
How do you spot opportunities in the market where others only see challenges?
I think it's the nature of you get the pessimist, you get the optimist, and then you get the entrepreneur. And I think people must also be realistic with themselves, whether they are entrepreneurial or not. Entrepreneurs generally will see opportunities and gaps. And I think there's also a difference between an entrepreneur and a wheeler dealer, which I think is also the thing. Wheeler dealers often will try and make arbitrage in a deal where there's just maybe a little bit of margin. But I think everything's an opportunity, everything's a pain point. I think it's also going through the process of understanding that pain point and the solution of that pain point. Does it actually result in real economic value, or is it just something there where you're plugging a gap and then there's no pain, but doesn't really result in money? So where do we see opportunities? I see opportunities all the time, everywhere. In every interaction, in every conversation, there's always something that makes me think, and I'll write a note down and then sort of explore it or whatever else. How many opportunities have we taken? Tons and tons of opportunities. How many have we given up? Multiples of that. We've given up or not explored or looked at and haven't jumped. I think it's about being open to ideas, big time, open to conversations, open to new things. And I think the one thing which we've run this business on always, which is quite cool, is we always said if we're trying something and somebody around the table says that's how it's always been done, then they're out the conversation, because that's not what we do. I don't want to hear that's how we've always done it. I want to explore new ideas. If it means we go back to how we've always done it because there's no better ideas, that means we're doing it the best way possible. But and I think the openness, I think within our business we're super open to ideas and exploration of things and meeting new people from diverse backgrounds and skill sets and talents and everything else, and to put something in place. So the opportunities are everywhere. It's more being open to them than anything else.
How many businesses have you started or been part of and has failed?
More than I've got on two hands, that's for sure. Lots. Conceptually, lots. Education business, training business, finance business, lots and lots of business. Not necessarily failed because of anything other than just when you start realizing again the money you can make out of it. Is it worth the time and effort and energy versus what we're doing? And I think the one thing that I've done, one big mistake that I've made in the past, is opening businesses that we feel are big opportunities, but what it ends up doing more than anything, it ends up taking away from your core focus. And my aunt is an amazing businesswoman, and one piece of advice she gave me, I asked her 10, 12, 14 years ago, like, if you give me any piece of advice, what would you say? It's like, just stick to your knitting, stick to what you're good at, stick to what you do. That's the important part. And you do veer and you do sort of waver and you look at ideas and you think, that's going to be the next big thing. But if I look back now, sort of from that piece of advice to now, it's the truest thing ever, is stick to your knitting. We do property, we do it flipping well. The opportunities out of that will come, but we still, at our core, are always doing property first.
What advice would you give someone who wants to scale their business? but feel stuck at a certain level?
You're not stuck, you just don't want to give up control of stuff. And I went through that. I mean, in the last 3 years, we've scaled up hugely. I mean, we've gone from probably 30, 40 people in the group to almost 400 people in the group now in the last 3 years. And the biggest issue in the year one was me giving up control over certain things that I was responsible for. So I'd control the finances, or giving access to bank accounts, giving access to the accounting systems, letting go of the capturing, letting go of the reviewing. That took probably a better part of 18 months. And it sounds easy when you do it, when you talk about it, but to actually let go is super, super difficult. So I think if you're struggling to scale, you're doing too much in your business and you're not getting the right people to do that for you. And the best thing you can do is find somebody who's very good, or if not better than you at doing that, and let them run with it and let them be their core focus, and then you focus on the part that you need to scale. So that means selling more, if it means finding recruiting more, if whatever scaling up means to you, that's what you need to focus up, and you need to take away the stuff that's taking up your time. And it's easy in business to always have this I'm busy mentality, like I'm just too busy to do it. But often the busyness is actually just your excuse. It's your own bullshit. And the minute you start getting rid of the I'm too busy story, you start seeing the opportunities, you start seeing the gaps, you start scaling, you start finding the right people. Because you're certainly not meeting the right people sitting behind your desk to build your business.
Yes. Can you relate that to an agent?
Yeah, I mean, again, as an agent, how do you scale your business? So you've got to find a space where you can either scale in terms of the number of sales you do. So what are you focusing on? If you focus on doing large luxury sales in one large development, I mean, how do you scale that? You're going to have to expand beyond that development. If you are in a high-end area, also not a high-end area, in a high-volume area in Joburg, you're going to have to build team to build it out. So maybe one thing you do is if you're seeing, well, my listings are limiting me, you go and get a canvasser. So that's, again, hiring the right person. If canvas is working, then maybe your marketing's not right. If your marketing's not right, maybe your listing strategy is not right. Listing strategy is right, then maybe your closing is not right. You've got to look at every level of your business. You've got to understand all the parts that actually come together to result in a deal, and look at each level of those at its granular level and understand, how do I increase that? So how do I increase my conversion on cold calling or canvassing? How do I increase my conversion from meeting a seller into mandates, and how do I convert that into a sale? And what am I doing at each level? And that could be aligning with a better company. It could be aligning with somebody within your company. It could be for yourself, hiring people that could fulfill that for you. Estate agents, when they're successful, are paid very, very well. The problem is most estate agents aren't, because it's that 80-20 rule. It's actually probably worse than 80-20. And so if you're taking the majority of people that sit within your office and using their experience, exposure, and success as your guiding light for you to take risky decisions, you're going to lose every single day of the week. So you've got to trust yourself, back yourself, and invest in yourself, and move it forward. Because part two is also, again, go back to the mindset of it. If you're spending time with a bunch of agents that are complaining that the market's not on their side, that their principal's not on their side, that the agency's not helping them, then you're going to fall into that same mindset. Whereas we've seen time and time again, there are very, very successful agents in brands that are of no significant value, are at no significant level of support, no significant training, because it's down to the agent and not the agency. It's their mindset, it's their approach that's more important.
What daily habits or routines keep you sharp as a leader and not?
So I'm going to say, I think the most thing is consistency, showing up every single day. I think that's vitally important. It's easy when you've got your own business, or even as an agent, to take time off all the time. But firstly, I'd really like what I do, so that's a useful thing. But and like the people that we spend time with. So when you're away from your family, you're into an environment where you're working, it needs to be in a place that you feel good and comfortable, and that aligns with your values and outlook on things. So I think that's the first thing. So creating that environment, and that's what we create for ourselves. And then part two is just that consistency. Years ago now, and not a runner, but ran the comrades, and one of the things that came out of that was I asked a runner at my club who had done 12 or 15 comrades, and I said to him, again, that one piece of advice thing, what can you tell me? And it was on the club run. He said to me, just never stop moving forward. Just take one step at a time. And as it happens, that exact piece of advice, I managed to finish in 11:59:09, so 51 seconds under the gun. And if I'd stopped at any stage for longer than a minute on that long day, it was a freaking long day, I would have not completed the comrade. So I think that's the same for entrepreneurship. You know, the only difference with that is you never stop keeping moving forward. You've always got to question yourself, ask yourself about what can you do next, where can you go. You never stop moving forward. But part two, there's just no finishing line. There's no definitive finishing line in entrepreneurship or running a business or a career. You know, some people I think sometimes set these monetary goals, but if that was true, then you'd have billionaires in the world would all be retired, and none of them are. So it's the reality is within a business, as you're growing and building, the dynamics change, and your plans change, and your goals change. So I think never stop moving forward is the thing, and that just comes off the back of consistency. And liking what you do. I freaking love it.
When self-doubt, I'm sure you have that sometimes, if self-doubt creeps in, how do you personally push it?
So it's interesting. I read a few books, and one of the books was about self-doubt, and I think, and it's always that thing is if you question yourself, are you doing the right thing? Do you lack confidence? Do you, and everything else? And I think the book speaks about self-doubt being the driver of most successful people. You know, doubting that you've done enough, doubting that you are ready enough, and always continually preparing and trying to drive more and get more. So I think actually the self-doubt that everybody carries within our space is an advantage. Entrepreneurship is an advantage. The self-doubt about an agent and how they respond to that is also important. You know, have I done enough today? No, just do one more. You know, have I worked hard? Have I pushed hard enough? Have I phoned enough? Have I pushed that seller? Have I pushed that buyer? Have I asked enough questions? Just ask one more. Just do one more. So I think the self-doubt again goes back to how do you make a successful business is just showing up. So first step is showing up, and then everything else comes off the back of that. You know, people can talk about having plans and business plans and all that nonsense. Like I think showing up is first prize, go, and then just try and push just to be one little bit better, 1% better, one step better, one thing all the time, and it'll play out into the right place.
What role has mentorship or surrounding yourself with the right people play in?
Yeah, so mentorship's sort of a vital part of any sort of journey. The problem is you don't always choose the right mentor. You sometimes don't choose the right mentors, and sometimes you get mentors through sort of networks and connection and just connect with people. So I think I've paid business coaches in the past that just didn't align with my thinking, my outlook, and I sat in these sessions and I'm thinking, which textbook you're reading this from, it doesn't really feel authentic or right. But then you sit with people who have got experience in diverse areas, and I spoke earlier about my aunt. My aunt's built a massive business and in the fashion industry. It has nothing to do with real estate, but there's always, just in conversations, those nuggets that you sit with. So I've been lucky enough to have really good mentors. I mean, my dad built an amazing business 30 years ago, and sitting with him and talking to him all those years ago were, maybe I didn't understand what I was learning at the time, but it's sort of, you when you're applying it in your own business, you think, oh, okay, actually there we are, that's where it applies, and it could apply 30 years later, but it's still relevant. So mentors are vitally important in your world. Like I say, sometimes you don't go hunting for them, they find you, and sometimes you just connect with people. And I think the connection is more important around mentors and their vested interest in you, and sort of they don't want anything from you, they just want to impart advice. I think that's been the biggest part for me, is where the guys are asking for rand value or equity or any of that stuff. That often just feels like they're just trying to get a piece of the pie versus advice for the sake of advice, which I think has been really good. So property industry in 10 years, where's it going to be? There's massive pressure on estate agents at the moment, both on the regulation side as well as the perceived value of an estate agent to the market. I think there's going to be a shift towards specialization. So agents will have to specialize in certain segments: development, luxury, mass market, so very specific areas of real estate where you can genuinely add massive value. The traditional sale model is going to come under pressure from a few areas. There are fixed fee operators out there, but I think less fixed fee and more private seller space, where because information is so freely available that people could potentially sell on their own quite easily. And once they start realizing the opportunity to save money there, I think there's going to be a movement in that direction. It's not the best movement of a direction, but it is a movement towards sort of searching for value, particularly in a world in South Africa, well, at least in South Africa, where economically people are under so much pressure. So I think there's a shift there. There's going to be a big demand in estate agents to become real experts, genuine experts. So I think it's an exciting space because it has been a fairly unregulated sort of free-for-all a little bit. So I think the advantage of that is that people will start seeing the real value of an estate agent, and the estate agents have a more respected role in both the economy and the house buying process. Where are we going as a company? Yeah, I mean, look, we've got a long way to grow. We have footprint in Cape Town at the moment. Not a massive footprint, but a footprint. We've got a footprint in Joburg as well, and Pretoria, and then we've got a small footprint out in KZN in the North Coast, North Coast. So we've got a lot of growing to do just from a South African perspective. We have a financial services business within our world, so financial services will grow internally. We are again specialising in certain areas. We've got a short-term letting business that is building and growing. So the intention to scale in areas that maybe aren't the focus of other estate agencies in the business, that aren't willing to take time and investment and energy to put it towards that. I think we're scaling into those directions, and what that does is it allows us to build revenue streams within the business that we can underpin ourselves, and we don't have to force the sales. So then you move away from that real cutthroat sort of environment of having to sell to keep yourself alive. We can sell because we're good at it, and our teams are good at it, and we do it in the right way. So I think we're moving towards a much more less transactional. Our business is moving away from just being a transactional business to one where we try to always never be a transactional business, but you're moving to a world where we have this ongoing relationship. So our only realty line is property partners for life, and that sort of expands beyond just you buying or selling your first home, or us selling your home for the first time. I think it's going on a journey for the long term. We're building a challenger brand in the market that's going to do things differently, and it's exciting. It's a really exciting space. We're a relatively young brand across the board. Got young, energetic guys at every level of the business. Our leadership team are all under 50, which is unheard of in our industry, and really, really driven to sort of do things the right way, but also differently. So we've got lots to learn. We from a mentor perspective, we've got connections with some of the stalwarts in the industry who guide and advise and give us insights. But I just think there's an energy that we bring to the market that's going to be make this really exciting over the next 10 years for us.